Hello, friends, creative friends out there. I'm Kara Plichinich. Welcome to Creative Pro, and this is our live stream. And I don't have much of a voice today. I apologize, but it is what it is. Whatever crud's going around found its way to me, but at least I'm still up and kicking and even dancing in my seat. So thank you so much for joining here today. We are going to be talking about Illustrator and the basics of just building with shapes in Illustrator. So I would love to know in the chat, what have you found to be the most confounding, confusing, frustrating thing about creating in Illustrator? Um, I see some comments coming in already, so we'll get to those in a minute, but keep them coming, and hopefully we can help you out and address some of those today. So what is on our agenda? Well, it's pretty simple. We're going to talk about building with shapes. What does that mean? Why do we, what does it mean to build with shapes, and why would we build with shapes, right? Why not just draw everything? And how do you do it? So that's what we're going to be talking about today. And let's take a peek before we dig into it. Let's jump into the chat and see what is going on here. I've got stuff all over my screen. So Scott says that the most confusing thing about Illustrator is editing paths. I hear you, Scott. There's so many different ways to do it. So many different tools, and it's not just your own paths. It can be even kind of a whole other ballgame when you're working with someone else's file, right? Whether that is a colleague, or maybe you are editing a stock file, that can be tricky. But that is what we're going to talk about today. I see Brad is here. Brad, thank you for being here. Brad struggles with the pen tool, even though he forces himself to use it all the time. I hear you. The pen tool is a trickster. But it doesn't have to be. It is one of those tools that takes a little bit of practice. But I think hopefully today some of the things we'll talk about will help with that. And Brad's not alone. Constance also struggles with the pen tool. And Teresa says it's the Pathfinder tool that drives her crazy. And I feel you, Teresa. I'm so grateful for the shape builder tool, because the Pathfinder panel and all the buttons in it have always made me bonkers. So we're going to talk about it today. That's what we are here to do. So let's jump in, shall we? I have my desktop right here. We are looking at Illustrator, and I'm just going to make a new document so we have something we can mess around with. And we'll just make it 10 by 10. Sounds great. There it is. All right. And before we dig into it too far, let's just put something on the baseboard here so we can not be staring at a white page. And I'm going to pull up my libraries so I can see all my fun colors, and I'll just pick one like this. We'll just put this in here, and I'm going to lock this down so we don't worry about it. I guess we don't need to lock the whole layer. We'll just lock this thing, the background, right? So that it is not in our way. And hopefully I think this will help things show up a little bit more clearly. And let's see, I just realized, there we go. So I can see you while we're all here together. And you can see me, and that's fun. And my cursor's doing that thing again where it's huge, isn't it? Oh, I've emailed all the streaming companies about this, and like, what? It's not how it looks on my screen, but we're going to make it work. So the thing about Illustrator, let's start with this, right? Because I come to Illustrator from a photography background, so and a Photoshop background. So that's a whole other course on its own, just like Illustrator for Photoshop people. But Illustrator is obviously a vector program, and but that doesn't mean a lot. When you just say that, I was like, okay, so it's vector, great. Um, and I would think of myself as someone who could draw in real life with a pencil and paper. Not impressively, mind you, but like I could draw stuff. It's okay. And but then when I would try to work in Illustrator, like I couldn't, right? Because the way that you draw in real life is not at all how you create vector graphics generally. You can, and that's a whole other topic, but like if you're going to make a logo or something, you don't typically just draw it in Illustrator. You build it. And it took me years to realize that. And it was a major roadblock. Like I could not wrap my head around Illustrator that way and vectors. Until strangely enough, until I got my Cricut here a few years back. But when I really got into paper crafting and Cricut and I was cutting up paper and working with software to do that, and then it sort of all just clicked in place. So to me, that's what shape building is all about. You just use shapes and either combine them or sometimes that means cutting them from each other. And that's what we're going to take a look at today. So let's dive in here real quick. And we'll just get started with a simple circle. So I'm going to grab my ellipse tool and let's switch to a white fill so we can see this nicely. A no stroke. And let's just make like a circle. Okay, there's a circle. Now, what if we were trying to make a cloud? We know clouds, typically if you're drawing like a cartoony cloud, they've got nice little fluffy round bunches. So we could take a simple innocent circle and we could duplicate it, maybe make it bigger, maybe really big. Let's see, like this. And maybe take another little small one. Maybe we'll put one over here on the end, like something like this. And we have sort of a cloud. And if we grab the rectangle tool, we could just come down here and make the bottom of the cloud. Now look at that. That suddenly looks like a cloud, and all we did was make a circle and a rectangle. Of course, in Illustrator, it's not quite a cloud right now. It's 3 circles and a rectangle, and we can see that if we go into outline mode. That's what we've got. 3 circles and a rectangle. So we have to learn how to actually use those vectors to cut into or add to each other to make a new shape. And that is what you would typically use the Pathfinder panel for. But as Teresa was saying, that is tricky. Sometimes it can be because this is what the Pathfinder panel looks like. And actually, where is mine? Let me open it. It is under Window Pathfinder. Oh, there it was. And so it's got all these buttons over here. And when you're trying to combine shapes, in this case, some circles and a rectangle, and then you're looking at this and you're like, what? The easiest button in the whole Pathfinder is this one, and that just unites everything. So this one's pretty simple. We can just grab it all together like this, and we can click Unite. And you see that? It all became one shape. And now if we look in outline mode, instead of having all those little circles and the little rectangle, we just have a cloud. And that's so simple that it even feels, honestly, it feels pretty silly to do a webinar or a live stream about it. But I don't know. And maybe for you guys, it wasn't such a hurdle. And maybe if you're coming at it not from a pixel world, maybe it's easy to just get that. But like my pixel brain was so not understanding that. And I could draw a cloud with pencil, but like in Illustrator, my way of trying to do that would have been to grab the pen tool and try and like draw a perfect cloud. And I mean, you can do that, but that's so much harder than it needs to be. So let's take a look at another example. What about a moon? Let's go back to our ellipse tool, and just, because we want to be like authentic, the moon would be gold. Oops, not the cloud. All right, so we'll make a new shape and we'll make it gold. And I'm gonna just draw it out like this. Okay, so now we have a circle. And I guess it could be a full moon, but what if we wanted a crescent moon? How would we... Oh, and I just realized my face was on top of the Pathfinder. Thank you for that in the chat. We can turn, let me move that. Let's do it. Watch this. I'm going to just drag my face across the screen. Where should I go? Down here? This seems like a safe bet. Okay. Thank you for reminding me. That's much better, isn't it? Okay, so let's back up. There's our cloud. And this is the Pathfinder panel with all the buttons in it. And this is the one right here that unites them. And I never have, I mean, if you hover over these buttons, it tells you what they do. But honestly, when I'm just trying to like join or combine shapes in one way or another, I just end up pushing all these buttons until I get what I want, and it's not very helpful. But thankfully, there's a different tool that we can use that makes that much easier. Thank you, Joyous Design and Gifts, for reminding me of my face was in the way. So this is the one we want in the Pathfinder that will unite all those shapes. Look at that. Beautiful. So if you like the Pathfinder, use the Pathfinder panel. I just personally could never remember, and like, I don't know, sometimes the names are helpful, but like sometimes not. And sometimes it may or may not work depending on which shape you have in front or behind. And I don't know, it was just kind of, you had to like know way too much to use the Pathfinder, I thought. So I'll show you in a bit another tool that is just much easier. So let's move our little fluffy cloud, and I'm going to make a new shape, and we'll make it a gold color. I'm going to go back to my ellipse tool, and here's our moon, and it's a nice full moon. But what if we wanted a crescent moon? Well, we could simply use another circle. And if I draw it like this, and let's say I make it another color so we can see, we'll make it a different yellow. That's a little bit easier. So we have the full moon, the big one, and then we have a smaller moon. And what I like to think of is that it's almost like cookie cutters, right? So if I had a big piece of dough here and I had a round cookie cutter shape, I could just press that shape into the dough and cut out this piece, and I would be left with the crescent moon. So how do we do that in Illustrator? So I'm going to select those two shapes, and this is where in the Pathfinder, there is an option here for minus front. So we could click on that. But again, that only works if this is the shape that's in front. And I don't know, it just also gets a little mind warpy sometimes. So another tool that makes this, I think, even easier is called the Shape Builder tool. So I'm just having both of those circles selected, and I'm going to grab the Shape Builder tool. The keyboard shortcut is Shift M, Shape Builder tool, because it is super magnificent. That's how I remember that keyboard shortcut. So super magnificent shape builder tool. And you'll notice, because my cursor is ginormous on your screen, you can very easily see that there's the cursor itself, and then there's a little plus sign. And the plus is key. The default mode for the shape builder tool is that it's going to combine things. So that's not what we're trying to do here. We can look at that in a minute. What we want to do is subtract, right? Because we're cutting out. We're using the second circle to cut a hole through our first circle. So like many of the tools in the Adobe sphere, we can change its behavior by using the Alt or Option key. So I'm just going to hold down the Alt or Option key, and you'll notice that the plus turns to a minus. And you'll also notice that while I'm holding that down, as I roll over these different shapes, you can see that whichever one I'm rolled over is kind of getting this weird overlay on top of it, which looks super weird when it's so big like that. But that is letting us visually see that Illustrator is recognizing the overlap of these paths. So we can very easily choose the parts we want to cut out or keep or whatever. So in this case, I want to remove this piece and I want to remove this piece. So all I'm going to do is hold down that Option key, and with my mouse, I'm just going to click and drag across those shapes. So I'm clicking, dragging, and when I let go, they disappear, and I'm left with a perfect crescent moon. And I just think that is so magical. So essentially, that shape builder tool lets you do the things you would normally maybe have reached for in the Pathfinder panel, but if you were like me, you would be like clicking through all of them. They're not working. You've got the wrong shape in front. And so you're just gonna drop kick your computer out the window. So much for Illustrator. But it doesn't have to be that way. All right, let's take a look at this cute little scene. Let's take a look at how we can really get in there and manipulate these points to get specifically lots of different kinds of effects and different results. So for example, if we wanted to draw, let's say, an ocean wave. A wave is generally, we think of it maybe as being rounded on the top. So we'll fill that in with another circle. Circles are kind of the key to everything here. Got to find a good, oh, my blues are killing me. It'll be a dark ocean, I guess. All right, so we have a dark blue circle here. And then we need to have another little carve out of the circle. So I'm going to just duplicate this and scale it down. Put it in here. Let's see. Maybe about right there. So it's like lined up. Where are my smart guides going today? They are not kicking in anywhere. Guides. All right. That should be pretty good. And let's do one more shape. I'm going to get a rectangle shape and put it like this. So we have this shape here, these three things. So I've got them all selected. And now I'm going to grab that shape builder, super magnificent shape builder. And if I hold down the minus, or hold down Alt or Option to get the minus key, the minus mode, I can go in here and just buzz the things I want to buzz out. And then next, I want to add all these shapes together. And I can actually see that I need to align this better. Yeah, that'll work. So I've got these selected. Let's merge the remaining shapes together by this time letting go of the Alt or Option key. And now I can just buzz through here and they all get joined. And that doesn't quite look like a wave, does it? It looks like a weird shark flipper. I don't know what this is. But of course, once we've got our shape more or less configured, we can use our direct selection tool to go in here. And I can click, for example, on this point right here, which brings up this little guy, this little corner widget. And that's going to let me click and drag to pull that out and smooth that edge. I can also click on this one and smooth that out like that. And actually, let's back this out. I think I want to get rid of this point right here. Let's select that out. So you can always go in and edit these shapes and adjust their corner widgets. There we go. And this one here to get a wave. Look at that. And then if we take this wave and maybe we duplicate it a few times, we could build a whole ocean. Isn't that fun? All right, so let's see what questions you guys have. Pop over here to the chat. Thank you again for letting me know my face was in your way. Charmaine says that the gradient mesh becomes a mess for her. I'm with you, Charmaine. The gradient mesh can be tricky. That is a whole topic for another day. But yeah, let me know if this is like kind of sinking in for you guys with all these shapes and the way that you build them together. Joyous Designs and Gifts is asking what keyboard option changed the point to curve? Good question. So in that case, to be able to adjust the curves and pull out those points, all you have to do is click on the point. I assume this is what you were talking about. So when I click, it's so tricky with this mouse, but when I click on the actual anchor point, that gives me this little round dial here called a corner widget. And this will work. Let's do it on a square. So if I just draw a square, and you can see, even just drawing it, when you let go, you can see all the little widgets that show up in the corner. That's what those little circles inside the square, those are the corner widgets. And so if you grab one while all of the points are selected, they will all morph. So we can turn a square into a circle just like that. If you want to be able to adjust individual ones, then you want to click on it with your direct selection tool. So that's the white arrow. And then you can click on it, and that will allow you to grab just the widget for that corner point. So I've got this top right anchor point selected, and now I can grab the little circle widget. I know it doesn't look like it on the screen because my mouse is crazy. But when you grab that little node and pull it in, you are able to smooth out that point. So I hope that that answers your question there. Joyous Design and Gifts. Okay. So let's take a look at, I'm going to move our ocean. I'm going to move that out of the way, and let's try another one. And this is another interesting way to think about it. Let's make a little umbrella. So I'm going to draw another ellipse. Let's give it a fun color. And we'll make an ellipse like this. Okay. And if we want to have some scalloped cutouts out of the bottom, and there's a lot of ways you could do this, but we'll just do one little option like this. So maybe I'll put this guy here. We'll make another one. And let's work in outline mode for a minute so you can really see this. Let's center these. Okay, and then we'll scallop these ones off the edges of it, just like this. It's a really sharp, really sharp umbrella. So we can't even tell what's going on, but when we select this, we can see this shape. And actually, I don't want the umbrella to be that sharp. Let's move this in. There we go. All right, so we're going to select all of those. Go over here. And I want to subtract all these little bits. So again, in the Pathfinder panel, I'm not sure which that would even be, because minusing front, I think, would only subtract the topmost shape. And I want to do a lot more than that. So you might have had to do multiple Pathfinder operations. But with the shape builder tool, it's super easy. So again, I'm just going to hold down Alt or Option, and now I can just buzz. This is my favorite part. It's also why I love the shape builder tool. I can just buzz through all of those bits, and when I let go, I have an umbrella. And that is so cool. But here's another way to think about it. If we want to draw the little handle of the umbrella, again, old me would have been like, all right, let me grab the pen tool and oops, we'll get a black stroke here. And I would have like clicked and come down here, and it's not terribly, hard to do. I mean, you can do it. But it's not very precise and clean. So another way to do it is to use a rectangle. And this is what blows my mind when I think about working in Illustrator, because this is not what would have made sense to me before. So I'm going to make a rectangle like this, and I'm going to fatten up the stroke nice and juicy so you can really see it. And let's have a look at this. Okay, so I have this rectangle here, but can you kind of see where the umbrella handle is? So we have the tip that would be coming out from the top of the umbrella, the handle coming down, and now right now it's not curved, but we have what would be the like hook part of the umbrella. But we don't have a filled shape. We have a stroked shape, but we can still cut away all of these pieces. So with this shape active, I want to just remove some parts of it. So I'm not going to use another shape to cut into it the way we did on the top of the umbrella. I'm going to use the direct selection tool. So that's the white arrow, second from the top in the toolbar this way. The white arrow, but I need to just remove a singular piece. Well, we'll do two, but we'll start with one so you can see. So I'm going to click with this tool. I'm going to click away and click back because sometimes it works a little better. But I have this piece selected now. So out of this whole rectangle, I just have this left side selected. And when I press delete, it goes away. And then I can come over here and select the top piece of the rectangle and oops. There we go. Make sure that you have just this top piece selected, not the whole thing, and then press delete again. And now this is looking more like an umbrella handle. In fact, it'll look a lot like an umbrella handle if we come down here and curve this up. Or another option would be, if we want to back this up, maybe we want to put another point right here on the handle. So I'm going to hit the plus key. That's going to give me my pen tool in add a point mode. And I'm going to put another little point right here. I'll switch back to the direct selection tool by pressing A. So I can select this piece right here again, and we'll delete it. And I'll select this piece up at the top, delete it. And now we can come down and take these two anchor points and curve them, and we get a perfect jade umbrella handle. And of course, if I select it and move it behind the umbrella, then it looks like it's coming out through the top of the umbrella. And to make it look a little bit less mean, let's round the caps here. And we can do that in our stroke panel, or from the top up here. If we click on stroke and we come down here, these are our options for the caps. And if we give it round caps, that'll give it this nice little rounded edge down here. And every time that I show this or think about this, it just blows me away, because I just could not wrap my head around this in my early days. I would have, again, tried to just draw the umbrella. But what we're ultimately trying to do is to just end up with a path, whether it's open or closed, doesn't really matter. We just want to get a path that is in whatever shape we want it to be. And that could be drawing a nice rounded umbrella handle here by starting out with a rectangle and then just rounding the corners and deleting some of these chunks. And I just think that's so magical. If we pop over to the chat, I can see, I love this from Charmaine. Charmaine gasps, no way, no way. I'm with you, Charmaine. That's why I love showcasing this stuff, because it really is, at least for my pixel brain, this is mind-blowing. So I find that really helpful. Joyous Design and Gift says, you don't have to pull those arms from anchor points anymore. I assume you're talking about how you can grab with the anchor point tool and just pull on the line segment. Maybe that's what you're referring to there. So I can show you. You tell me if this is what you're meaning. But I use this when I'm thinking about drawing shapes. Let's say we draw with the pen tool. Let me get a color we can really see here, like hot pink. I always do this with something still selected. I need to just deselect constantly in Illustrator. All right, so let's draw just a shape with the pen tool, and I'm just gonna draw with all, I don't know what this shape is. It's that. Okay, so there are no curves in this right now. So maybe this is what Janine's talking about. And if you wanted to take this line here and you wanted to curve it, you can now just switch over to the anchor tool, the keyboard shortcut. It's buried in here within the pen tool, the anchor point tool, but it's Shift C. Shift and the letter C for cool. But when you Shift C and you hover over this line, you get this cursor with the double-headed arrow, and you can actually just click and then drag and pull out the line segment. Yeah. Joyous Designs and Gifts says, yep, those Bezier curve arms, LOL. Yeah, so look at that. So you can just take a straight line segment and then you can drag it and morph it into whatever you want. And this is also a game changer, I think, because it really helps when I'm like trying to actually draw something with the pen tool, which I don't do terribly often, but it's great because instead of trying so hard to place each point with your pen tool perfectly and then being frustrated that it's not working out, you can just do what I call constellation drawing. So like if I was going to try and draw, let's say I was going to draw the cloud here just with the pen tool. Instead of trying to perfectly, it's easy now because I have all these anchors, I know exactly where they go. But instead of trying to draw and drag out handles and place precise curves as we go, we could just click. Oops, let me lock this guy down. We could just click, 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 and click. And then if we switch to that anchor tool, we can pull these pieces out after the fact and arrange from there. And I find it very liberating because I don't get so sucked into the perfectionism of trying to draw it perfect as I go. So I call it constellation drawing because to me, it's like, you know how the stars in the sky, we imagine that they're Big Dippers or Orion or any number of other things. And we really have to use our imaginations sometimes because they're really just dots. It's like a connect the dots. So if we imagine straight lines between all of those things, that's how I draw with the pen tool often, not always, but often I'll just do that and go in after the fact and pull out the lines to get them where I want them to go. So, good point. I am grateful that you mentioned that. Joyous Design and Gifts. Let's see. We have another question. Where's my mouse? We have another question from Scott saying, for example, when you selected parts of the rectangle that became the umbrella handle, I really couldn't tell. Oh, so he's asking how to talk a little bit about, I guess here's the question. To talk about which points are selected and how do you know? Yes. Well, that is tricky, and it doesn't help that the points are all very tiny, right, Scott? I mean, that's why we have that's why I'm wearing glasses at this point. They're so tiny, I can't see them anymore. It's very tricky. It is hard to tell. So let's take a peek and go look and see if I can find a good way to show you this. If we really zoom in, and let's go into our layer options, and I'm going to change this to, it's hard to find a color that clashes that, here, magenta maybe? Okay, so maybe this will help. So when I select the shape with the selection tool, my preferences are such that the shape is selected. I see that it's selected because it has this box around it. If I press the direct selection tool by pressing A on my keyboard, I can see the points now, and I can click to select them individually. You know that a point is selected when it is filled in, and it's really hard to show you on my screen because my cursor's giant and in the way. But the anchor point is hollow when it's not selected, and it's filled when it is selected. So that is how you can tell if a point or multiple points are selected. So right now this one is full up here, and the one over here is hollow. But if I shift click on this one, now they're both full. And so if I press delete right now, I would delete both of those points. When it comes to the segments in between them, I honestly do have a really hard time telling. So what I tend to do is marquee select across the segment. So what that means is if I see that there's a point here and there's a point here, if I want to select this area between them, I'm going to use my direct selection tool, and I'm just going to click and drag across the segment. So I'm clicking and dragging like I was drawing a frame, right? That's called a marquee select. And that way when I let go, the segment is selected, and I could just delete that segment if I wanted to. So hopefully that answers that question. Let's pop back and see what else has come up. Oh, Brad says super helpful. Thank you, Brad. I don't know. Like, yeah, it's just one of those things that is a little bit tricky. Scott says, okay, so dragging across a segment's a trick. Glad I could help. Yeah, that's what I end up doing too, Scott, because otherwise I get really, it is hard to tell, and I often delete things I don't mean to. And I think that's just part of working in Illustrator. Let me show you guys something else that I think is really cool. And whoop. All right. So let's say we want to draw, like, Mother's Day is coming up, right? And I think my son is growing flowers at school to give to me. He hasn't said that yet, but he told me he's making something for me at school, and he talks every day about his plant and how big it's growing. And I think the other day he slipped that it was a flower. So I think I'm on to him. But let's imagine we want to draw a vase for our flowers, or whatever mysterious Mother's Day gift is brewing up. And this is so cool. And this is another kind of mind like opening thing that for me, coming from a pixel land, was very, very helpful. And that is this. We're going to draw a vase, and we're going to just do it with the line tool. And let's pick a color that's, I don't know, not garish. Okay, so here we are. I'm going to click, and I'm going to click. You could also do this with the pen tool. Okay, we'll do it with a pen tool if you like that better. We'll hit P for pen tool, get my color back. And two points. Just click like here, whoop, and down here. Press escape, and this line is going to become our vase. And I will show you how and why and what in a minute. So right now it's just a line, but I'm going to select it. Let's we'll fatten it up a little bit so we can see it maybe. But that's it. This is going to become a vase, and it's going to be perfectly symmetrical, and we're going to do it using something called the width tool, I think. Yeah, the keyboard shortcut is Shift W. So it's this tool over here, and the way that it works is like this. You draw a path, give it a stroke, and up here, like let's say at the bottom, I want this stroke to be really wide. So I'm just going to click on the stroke and pull out, and it becomes wide at the bottom. And then it's going in. And as I move my cursor up this line, we can see this little node sliding up and down it. So if I want to draw a vase that's like wide at the bottom, and then it's going to come in, and then we'll have it flare out again at the neck, I'll come up here where I want it to come in and then go out again. And I'll click, and look at this. We can put these nodes in here wherever we want, and we can adjust them even after the fact. I put this one way too low, I think. Let's move it up. There we go. That's what I'm thinking. So we're able to adjust the shape of this vase after the fact. And this whole thing, if we look in outline mode, is still just a line. So I didn't have to use a pen tool to like draw any curves and then try and like match them or reflect them or anything like that. It's just a single line, 2 points, one at the top and one at the bottom. And the magic sauce is this width tool. Shift W is the keyboard shortcut. And in that little flyout demo, you can see how it works. So basically, you've got a node at the top and a node at the bottom. And with the width tool, you're able to say, at this point along the path, I want you to be wide, or I want you to be narrow. And then Illustrator just does it. And I love it. I think it's so cool. And check this out. We're going to use the pencil tool to draw lines on our vase to decorate it. I'm sure my flower's probably going to come home in a handcrafted, like hand decorated paper cup or something cute. I can't wait to see. So let's decorate this vase. And I'm going to use the pencil tool, and we'll make sure it's smooth. So the pencil tool, the keyboard shortcut is N, like pencil. And if you double click on the tool, that'll pop open the options for the tool. And this is different from other Adobe tools because most of them, the options are up here in what we call the options bar. But for whatever reason, in Illustrator, they are not. So you have to double click on the tool to get the options. And the pencil tool is amazing when you drag this fidelity slider up so that it's smoother. And we'll click OK. And I'm going to just draw some lines here like this on the vase. So something like that, maybe one across the bottom for good measure. But now if we want to buzz these so that they're on the vase and they're not sticking out of the edge here, you will notice if we grab our shape builder tool, Shift M, and I come in, you'll notice it's not really recognizing anything. There's no pieces that are having that weird overlay to let me know we can buzz it off. And that's because if we look in outline mode, this is what we have happening. So we're looking at lines that are just overlapping on a single path like this. So what is going on? Well, when we used that width tool, it's sort of like an effect. We sort of cast a magic spell on our path that is creating this vase shape. And in order to shape build with that vase shape, we have to make the magic spell real. It's like we need the fairy godmother to sprinkle the dust on us that's going to make us into a real vase instead of just a line. And how do we do that? That is done by expansion. So if you've ever wondered why do we have to expand things in Illustrator? This was another huge hangup of mine. And honestly, no one explained it to me. I don't know. I just eventually figured it out. And then I was like, oh, that's not such a big deal. Why did I not get it? And why did nobody explain it to me? But that's what we're doing is we're calling the fairy godmother. When we expand something in Illustrator, that's what we're doing. We're turning it into a shape. And right now, this is not a shape, it's a line. And it has an effect basically applied to it. So we're going to select that object. And you can see again, it's just that line. We'll go back up here into object and we'll choose expand appearance. And now it's not that line anymore with an effect on it. It's a vase. And now when we select the vase shape and all the little whiskers that I just drew on it, and we go back to our shape builder tool by pressing Shift M because it's super magnificent, and we hold down the Alt or Option key because we want to buzz off these little bits here. Now we can buzz through and cut off the whiskers. And now we have a beautiful vase ready for a Mother's Day bouquet. And I just love that so much. And every time I do this now, I mean, this is like Illustrator 101, right? It's like the most basic operating way of how Illustrator works. And I did not get it. I just didn't get it. I don't know why. It's just that's the way life is with vectors. And that was not a thing in my pixel world. And I just like could not get it. Does anyone else relate? Did you struggle with that? Or maybe it is just me and my special brain. But let's see in the comments what you guys had to say about that. Oh, and Dirk is saying you can make the points really big by changing the size and the preferences. Yes, Dirk. Thank you. You can, and that can be found in the preferences if you press Command or Control K, right? Let me just double check. Yep. Command or Control K will open up your preferences, and then you can change the size of all those little points. And now that I'm up to like 2 something readers, I should probably do that. So thank you for the reminder, Dirk. And that's a great tip for everybody. I'm sure, Scott, you can appreciate that too, right? And Joyous Design was saying, what tool does this again? And that is the width tool, as Dirk kindly reminded everyone, the width tool, which is found by pressing Shift W. And Illustrator is like the one application for Adobe where I rarely use the toolbar because I just feel like I can never find anything on it. And so keyboard shortcuts are huge. And in Illustrator, a lot of the keyboard shortcuts for the tools, a lot of them involve the Shift key because there's just so many tools. Dirk is also pointing out, by the way, the selected points are filled squares and the unselected ones are circles that are hollow. Oh, they're squares, not circles. Sorry. That's why it helps if you make the points bigger. Yes, they are squares. Um, but one is filled and one is hollow. And if you can't tell what shape it is, you definitely need to make them bigger. Charmaine says, it really can be those little things that make using a program so much more efficient and enjoyable. I'm with you, Charmaine, right? It's like, those are the little things, I call them like, those are the navigational things, even though those examples don't involve navigating, but it is like just how you make things work. It's not having to understand a whole bunch of like high level art theory about how you create art, but just really understanding like the tools, where they are, how to get them, how to access the options. And in Illustrator is kind of a different ballgame. So yeah, I find it helpful to note you have to use Shift for a lot of the keyboard shortcuts for the tools in Illustrator. You have to double click on a tool to get the options in Illustrator for controlling how that tool works. And that is unlike InDesign or Photoshop in most cases that I can think of. There, you access those things in a little bit different ways. So it's interesting. And so Joyous Design says, Procreate and Photoshop brains analyzes very differently than a vector Illustrator brain. This helps so much. I'm so glad. I'm really glad. I'm telling you, I have been trying to wrap my head around this for a very long time. And I don't want to say it's like shameful how long it took, because it's not shameful. It's just different. My brain wasn't having it. It just wasn't having it. And I think partly it's because I didn't understand why, right? Like I didn't understand why we had to expand things. And when I would ask people who were living and breathing it, they would just be like, "Oh, cuz you just have to before you can print it or whatever." And I'm like, "But why? Like what's happening when you expand a shape? Like it's already a shape?" And they weren't telling me and I didn't get it. Like no, it wasn't. It was a line with an effect on it. Or it may have been a shape but it had an effect on it. Or another thing that you can do, and maybe let's talk about this too while I'm thinking of it. Another thing that you can do when you have your mouse back is convert a stroked path into a closed shape. And this, I mean, I don't have a sexy example for you for this, but let's just make one up. Oh, so I'm going to just make an open shape with the pen tool, right? So just something like this. And maybe I'll make it wild and grab some of these points out. Convert this one. There we go. Whatever this shape is. Uh okay. And let's make it fat. It's a stroke, but let's give it a fatter width. And we'll round cap it so it's purty. And okay, this very ugly thing. But right now, this very ugly thing is a open path, meaning it is just a line with no closed shape. So if you were to try and like pour water into this, it would all spill out because there's no closure. Like a rectangle, of course, if we made a rectangle, this is a closed shape, this is an open shape. So sometimes you might want to create something and ultimately you want it to be a closed shape, but in the process of getting there, sometimes it's easier to just draw it as a line and then maybe you fatten it up with a fat stroke or whatever, and then you turn it into a shape. So I'll make it even fatter to really show you what I mean. Like imagine if I was going to draw, this large mouse thing is killing me. If I was going to draw this shape, there'd be a lot of points I would have to make, right? To like make this around this curve and this line here. But if I draw it as a open shape, I'm just clicking, clicking, there's 1, 2, maybe 3 or 4 points in here. And then we can turn it from a open path with a stroke. We can turn it into a closed path with a fill. So just to confirm, I've got it selected. Let's look down here. We can see it has no fill. It has a stroke. And we can look here when we look at it in outline mode, it's just a line. But if we come up to the object menu and we choose expand, and we make sure that stroke is selected, now we're going to click OK. Watch what happens. Now it's a filled shape. So the line that was down the middle is now gone because now the path is on the outside and it's closed. So now if we look at our fill and our stroke over here, now this is filled with pink and it has no stroke at all. And if we go into outline mode, it looks like this. This is what blew my mind when I finally was like, I think I'm getting it now. Why we expand things and also just really understanding the difference between a stroke and a fill or an open path and a closed path. So now this is a shape, a closed shape rather than just a line. So now there are points along the edge and we can do things like this. And really get confusing and drag it over itself like that. But I felt like once I started to understand these types of situations, it was like everything else in Illustrator unlocked. It doesn't mean that I'm the world's greatest illustrator. I'm not an illustrator, but I can use Illustrator to make things now because I understand these very foundational core pieces to how it works. Let's go back over to the chat. I see some questions in here. Can you go over expand with live trace? It's kind of the same thing. So live trace, I don't know if I have anything handy that I can just throw in here to a live trace. Live trace is something you use when you are maybe you've drawn something by hand and you're going to try and digitize it and bring it into Illustrator. Or oftentimes it's used if you're trying to digitize a logo. So a lot of times people have logo art and someone needs you to vectorize it and all they have is like a low res JPEG. So then you might bring it into Illustrator and trace it. But I am just, before we go back over to my computer here, I was just going to see if I had anything handy that I could demo that with. And I am so coming up completely a blank. But a simple a logo is a great example, and I can just show you where you find this feature. But you would basically just choose File, Place, and place that artwork into Illustrator. And just in so doing, you will see a little button up here. It will show up in this control panel, which if you don't see this along the top of your screen, then you just need to go to Window and choose Control. That's Window Control. That's the control panel. And in there, once you place an image, it will show up with a little box that says Image Trace. And when you click on it, you can configure the settings. And when you expand Image Trace, you're doing the same thing. You're taking sort of the interpretation of the design and you're making it into actual vector paths and shapes that you can interact with. So that was, I hope that was helpful. Yeah, Scott says live trace is like a whole other can of worms. Yeah, we don't have time for that today. But it is pretty simple. That would be another good, maybe a good live stream is something on live trace. I use it very, I don't know, like, I use the auto features a lot, and I don't nitpick with it a ton, but it is really great, and it's gotten so much better over the years. But again, it's really useful for digitizing, like, line art if you drew something and you wanna bring it in, or vector art. So, yeah, my friends. Well, thank you so much for joining here today. And I want to let you guys know, if you are enjoying everything that we have on the Creative Pro YouTube channel, did you know you could come and hang out with us in person this summer or live online uh, at Creative Pro Week? And I have this URL right here, creativeproweek.com, and you can use the code livestream to save $100 on registration. And we would love to see you. We're going to be out in Phoenix in June, from June 2nd to the 6th. And we have, like, I don't know, 70 or something sessions with amazing, amazing expert instructors from all around the world. And it's basically just an excuse to get together with our friends and fellow creatives and share and inspire each other and make cool things and learn how to do more, how to make more, how to save time and do it better. Do it all better. And it's one of the highlights of my year. I always look forward to it. And if any of you think it sounds like fun, you can join us in person in Phoenix, or you can also buy an online pass, and the whole thing is streamed and you get access to all the recordings, and every session has a handout too. With really great resources and instructions and references and all that stuff. It's pretty amazing. So just one more time for the folks at home, creativeproweek.com, and you can use the code livestream to save $100. So we would love to see you there. Thank you so much for joining me, and it's always a treat. You can also let us know in the comments if there's something else you want us to cover in a future live stream, perhaps something on image trace. Who knows? Anything's possible, and I love to hear your ideas. So thank you so much for being here, and I'll see you next time. Bye.